It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Hainan, China. We've got a question from our friend BJJ, Dama, Flora, Max, something like that. Long-time subscriber. He sent in a couple of questions. But I'm answering this one because I've been asked it a lot. And the question came in the form of kind of a resume. He's like, I've done this, I've done that, I've got all this experience in jiu-jitsu and MMA. And he told me about coaches that he admires. They're not coaches he admires because they're the baddest man in the room, but because they command the respect of those in the room and they can get stuff done. They give orders, people follow the orders, and they get results, right? So he admires these coaches who are good at coaching, right? And a big part of that is commanding respect, but he notices that that's hard to do. How do you do that? How do you command the respect of others as a coach? I get this question a lot because a lot of people struggle with this. And I'm going to level with you, it is a skill that comes with time, which is why you're not going to find a lot of very young men who are good at coaching. You'll find some, and you'll find a lot more young men who are good at instructing than coaching. Like, you don't have to be a good coach to be a good instructor. A coach is somebody who commands respect. I'm going to tell you a story. When I was in college, I studied dance, modern dance. If you don't know, I've got a dance degree. I used to perform with a few different ballet companies and modern dance companies. And in college, for my first big piece of choreography that I did, and I started dancing late. I started dancing at age 22, just like Martha Graham, pioneer of modern dance. But most of my contemporaries started very, very young, and they were much, much more experienced, and I felt like I didn't really belong there. And so I had trouble. I had a lot of trouble commanding their respect as a choreographer. And so we would meet, we'd practice this piece that I was choreographing. It was a decent enough piece, but I lacked confidence. And I would often defer to everybody else's judgment. Well, you're more experienced, so you make the final call. You make the executive decision. And so nobody respected me because I didn't respect myself. So we had a professor, a dance professor, a guy named Pat Debenham, brilliant choreographer and teacher. And he decided he wanted to come and watch us practice. And he watches what I'm doing, and I'm floundering about a little. Well, I'm giving the instructions, do this, do that, do it this way, do it that way. And it's not getting the result that I want, and people are not following my lead. There's no respect there. Then Pat says, do you mind if I give it a try? I say, okay, go for it. And he gives the exact same cues that I do, exact same words, exact same verbiage, and everybody jumps to it. And then Pat says to me, what did I do differently than you? And I said, well, at the surface, nothing. You did it the same way I did. He said, well, what was the difference? Why did they listen to me and not to you? And I said, well, they respect you. And he said, and that respect is an illusion. Why do they respect me and not you? Because you're Pat Debenham, you're the guy. That is an illusion, he said. And that's a valuable lesson. This idea that somebody is competent enough to follow, it's largely an illusion. We do not communicate with information. We don't. We communicate with stories and narratives. I gave my dance company information. I did not get results. Pat Debenham gave them the information, but more importantly, he had a story behind him. he had crafted this narrative. He is this great choreographer. He is this expert. He's got a PhD in the subject. He's also the man giving out the grades. So it is in the best interest of everybody in the dance company to listen to the director of the company, right? Because he's the man. Now, you don't have to be the director with a PhD and, the best credentials in the room to get respect, because there were other student choreographers and they got respect and they made it happen, right? They gave their performers the cues and they followed it and they had everyone's respect. And they were undergraduates, just like me at that point in my life. So what was the difference? They had confidence. They built up a narrative for themselves. I can do this. It's not just an illusion for other people, it's an illusion for yourself. Almost every day in the YouTube comments, I get angry comments from people who are probably having a bad day. And they say something to me like, "You're a fake, you're a fraud, you're a phony. I looked up your MMA record on SureDog and it's not very good. And so, you must suck as a coach." And they say a lot of negative things like that. And I don't know what their end game is. I just assume they're having a bad day and they want to lash out at the guy on the internet who has more eyeballs on him than they have on them. But I know my own story. I know my own narrative because I've lived it, I've crafted it, I've created it. So I know who I am. I'm also my worst critic by far. And that can work for you. That can work against you depending on how you use that narrative and how you craft that narrative. I talk about this so much on this channel. We do not communicate with information. We communicate with stories. You're probably wondering what's going on here. Walking on a beach next to the South China Sea. I'm usually in Shanghai, either at the gym or in my home studio, recording something. You're probably wondering, what's the story here? Why? The stories are compelling. It's how we communicate. Who are you more likely to take a jiu-jitsu lesson from? Some random guy you don't know anything about, wearing street clothes, or some random guy you don't know anything about, who's wearing a jiu-jitsu uniform and a black belt. If that's all you know about them, most of you would opt to train with the guy in the uniform with the black belt because you would think, well, there's a higher chance he's probably a legitimate black belt and he knows what he's doing. Because that uniform is a symbol, it's iconography that tells a story. It tells a story this guy has been involved in the sport of jiu-jitsu long enough to get a black belt. Or, if he's not convincing enough in that costume as that black belt, as that icon, you might start to doubt and tell yourself another story. This guy's a fake. This guy's a phony. Or if I give you a little bit more information, you have two coaches. One of them is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he earned his black belt from, I don't know, a big name in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu, like maybe Renzo Gracie, okay? And maybe he won an IBJJF World Championship once. All right, that's what you know about the one guy. You don't know anything else. And the other coach, he's never won a world championship. He does not have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he's fought professionally in mixed martial arts. Okay, choose. Who's your coach? Which one do you pick? I think a lot of you are going to pick the black belt who won a world championship once, trained with the guy you've heard of, with the big name, and that makes sense, because that's a more compelling story. But then, what if I tell you that other guy was, I don't know, a big name UFC fighter? That might change things a little bit. Because there are a lot of big name UFC fighters who don't have black belts. And they haven't won a BJJ World Championship. How about Israel Adesanya? He doesn't have a black belt. He's never won an IBJJF World Championship. Is he worth training with? Probably. Probably. And that changes things because it gives you a story, gives you a narrative. We know something about that guy. And I think one of the reasons that Adesanya is one of the highest paid athletes in the UFC right now is because his story is so compelling, because he's interesting. He's not just another guy who can punch and kick and grapple a bit. He's interesting. He knows how to talk. He knows how to spin the narrative. He knows how to construct his own narrative. He knows how to make you care, both inside and out of the cage. This is important, not just for athletes, but it's important for coaches. We had a discussion on this channel recently about John Danaher. Somebody asked if I thought he was the best jiu-jitsu coach in the world. And I said something like, well, he's obviously a very good and successful jiu-jitsu coach. Is he the best in the world? That's not obvious. There are so many jiu-jitsu coaches that you probably never heard of who are great, who've trained world champions, etc., but they simply don't have the screen time, the screen presence, or the charisma that Danaher has. So, what do we do with that? There are different ways to command a room, if you will. Many different ways to command a room. And it depends on who you're coaching and why they're training. For example, coaching a bunch of kids is way, way different than coaching a bunch of cage fighters. You can be the greatest, most respected MMA coach on planet Earth and absolutely suck at coaching a room full of kids. It's just how it is. It's a unique skill set, training kids. It's when I see guys like, say, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Found out a while back he coaches the kids' classes at his gym while also being an active UFC fighter. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. It's really cool because I've taught kids' classes. I still do sometimes. I don't particularly enjoy it because it's really, really difficult. I think that's probably the most difficult job in martial arts. So if you're a guy like Wonderboy and you find that to be rewarding, win-win, man, because you're doing the difficult job, you're good at it, and you enjoy it, Great. That's awesome. But that's also a rare individual. It's a rare individual who excels at all of those skill sets. So, in large groups of children, I have a very difficult time commanding the room, to be honest. One-on-one, no problem. I can read the room with one kid easily enough. But like 20, 30, forget about it. But I assume you're talking about adults, people who want to be athletes, fighters maybe. How do you command their respect? Number one, respect yourself. It sounds very cliche, but you have to believe in what you're doing. That doesn't mean that everything you're doing is right. Because as a coach, you should always be looking for a better way to do it. Always. But you don't second guess yourself as far as being the leader of the group. You don't second guess your place on the social hierarchy. And that's a very different thing than admitting that you're wrong when you're wrong. I do that all the time, man. When I'm wrong, I always admit it to people's face. This female student once, and we were discussing something. I don't remember what, but I was wrong about something that I was telling her. And when I realized it, I said, "I'm sorry. I was wrong and you were right." And she said, wait, could you repeat that? And I said, "I was wrong and you were right." And she said, could you say that one more time? I've never, ever heard a man say that to me before. I said, "I was wrong and you were right." And it made her day. But it shocked her to the core. One, because a man had never said that to her before, but more so somebody in a position of authority in the social hierarchy owned up to a mistake. Now, you can absolutely own up to a mistake without and that's not the same thing as second guessing yourself or deferring authority to others. Another important thing is delegating authority. That's a very different thing than deferring to the judgment of others. Come in with a game plan to your training sessions, but come in with a game plan that is flexible. For a couple of reasons. One, the idea that you had in your head may not be what your athletes need that day. So I come in, here's how I organize my classes. I don't follow a strict syllabus. And this upsets some people, but I don't. I come in with some ideas based on what I know about my students and my athletes. Like, I know them. Something that upsets me a bit when I've talked about belt ranks and how belt ranks are just unnecessary in a martial arts class. I always get people say, well, the instructor needs to give the students belt ranks so that he can tell what level they're at. Dude, if you are that disconnected from your own students that you have taught, you've taught them everything they know, and you can't even remember who is who and who you've taught what to, you're not a good instructor. And you're definitely not a good coach. Can't even recognize names and faces. Learn everybody's name. Know everybody by name. Not by belt color. That's stupid, objectively. You're really going to forget that type of relationship you have with somebody you've trained with for years? And just pretend that never existed? Because, he's got the wrong belt color on. I forgot everything about this guy. What was his name? What did I teach him? Look, as soon as you lay your hands on somebody, you know exactly what they are capable of. It's not that hard to figure out. So, again, I come into a training session with some ideas, kind of a loose framework that is flexible. That has room for adjustments. For example, in a previous training session, I'll see this guy is having trouble in this particular position. And so we're going to work that position today. See if we can fix that. As opposed to, oh, I saw some flippy-dippy jiu-jitsu on Instagram the other day. And so we're going to do that move of the day. Who does that help? Command respect by being someone that your athletes trust, that they trust with their lives. Somebody asked me, forget who, do I get nervous coaching? In the gym, no, but this is one point where I do get nervous coaching. And that is where I walk with a fighter to the cage or to the ring, and then they get in, and from that point, I can't pull the strings. I can give cues from the sideline. I can give instructions from the sidelines. But I can't fight the fight for them anymore. And that, taking that control out of my hands, that's a little nerve-wracking. Because part of me just wants to jump in there and do a for 'em. But it's a different type of nervousness. I'm not nervous that they'll get hurt. Well, I mean, yeah, there's that. I'm not nervous that they'll lose or get embarrassed because I'm absolutely confident with what I've taught them. In over 15 years of coaching, in multiple combat sports, mixed martial arts primarily, but also kickboxing, boxing, and submission grappling. Very, very few of my athletes have ever lost in competition. And those who did, well, boy, did they ever give it the old college try. But why did very few of them lose? Why? Because we did it right. We did it the right way. We got out there and trained, we troubleshooted, we fixed it. We did it again and again and again. And we developed a relationship of trust between athlete and coach where they know, they don't just believe, they know that what they are training is going to work in the cage because they see that it works. They can because they see that they can. Posunt kia pose videntur. It's a Latin phrase. Don't know who said that. A Roman, maybe. They have confidence in me because I show them the way to develop competence themselves. Because I show them the way that once they reach those cage doors or those ring ropes and they get in and I cannot follow, that they have no reason to fear. Because they know what they're doing at that point. I've given them the tools, and then they went out and built something with it. I had a student named Alexei. He was from Ukraine. Very good boxer and kickboxer. And I cornered a fight for him. I forget which city it was, somewhere here in China. Anyway. And this was kind of a crooked promotion. I could tell that the officials were trying to pull the strings and make all the foreigners lose and have all the local champions win. And so before the fight, I give Alexei a bit of admonition, like, okay, you've got to be cognizant of this. You got to be mindful of that. They're going to try to make you lose no matter what. And then Alexei looks at me and he says, "Do not worry, coach. I will win." He wouldn't take that crap for an answer. So he says it with such absolute confidence. Not so much confidence that he's got the right coach in the corner, but confidence that he knows what he's doing because he's been given the tools and he took those tools and he built something with it. And that something was awesome. It was a wrecking machine of destruction. So he gets there in the ring and he lays his opponent out flat and the guy staggers to his feet, and the referee is intent on making Alexei lose, and so he gives the guy like a 5-minute break to recover, which, if you don't know the rules of kickboxing, no, you're not supposed to do that. The fight starts over again. Alexei knocks him through the ropes. Dude goes flying out into the crowd. They bring the guy back and give him like another 5-minute break, something like that. They start the fight. Alexei just starts trouncing him. They should have called the fight off as a TKO at this point. And the referee stops Alexei from pouncing on him and gives him another few minutes break. All of this is very illegal, but yeah, they didn't care. They just wanted to win, no matter what. And between the break, Alexei comes over the corner. I'm like, "They're trying to make you lose." And he says, "Do not worry, coach. I will win," with a smile on his face. The action starts again. Alexei knocks the guy through the ropes. Not once, but 2 more times. Knocking people through the ropes is pretty rare. Jack Dempsey did it once. I forget who he knocked through the ropes, but it was pretty awesome. But if you're knocking a dude through the ropes multiple times, you're not losing. Oh man, it was such a one-sided beatdown and so pathetically obvious how they were doing everything in their power to try to make Alexei lose. And in spite of their best efforts, they could not. Anyway, I love that dude. It's very tempting as a coach to take credit for the success of the athletes that you coach. But again, all you do is give them the tools to build with. And they go out and do all the work. I remember when I first met Alexei, he was okay. He was a pretty decent athlete. Knew how to throw a punch and a kick. But then he went back home to Ukraine for a few months, just a few months. And then he came back to Shanghai. And his boxing suddenly was way better. And I said, what happened? Did you like join a boxing gym over in Ukraine? And he said, no, I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos and practiced every day. I was like, wow, that is incredible. I'm much more interested in knowing how you practiced than which YouTube videos you were watching. Because you can watch the best YouTube videos, the best technique videos out there, and still absolutely suck. But he did the one crucial thing that I'm always telling you to do. Get out there and train. And he did it. And the level of improvement in a few months was staggering. Absolutely staggering. And he never slowed down from that pace. If you want respect, show respect. Give respect. Be a respectful person. There's a lot of confusion about what respect is and what that means and what it isn't. Doesn't mean live life as a monk and never laugh, never tell a joke, don't have a sense of humor. It doesn't mean never get in the ring and beat people up, because that's what the job is, man. All right, guys, it's hot out here on the coast today. I'm going to call it a day. Hope that helped. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.